Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mike. It is the 18th of November. I'm going to do a webinar here for you guys on the state of the market, and I thought this would be a good time to come in and talk about what we're seeing and some changes taking place here and hopefully help some of you guys out. So, first things first here, if you don't trade for a living every day, this is not your market. You should be learning, you should be practicing with paper trading or very small, but this is not your market. And, this is nothing easy about this market right now. That doesn't mean it's going to last, but right now we're having a correction in this market, a pullback, some type of corrective activity going on here. And the important thing to realize is that the market has changed character. So start with the S&P 500 from this big look of the last 12 months, right? The last year. In here, right, we knew what was happening. Trump had taken office and it was the tariff trade. And then in here was the blow up of the reciprocal stuff until it was a couple days later, it was taken back off and we had this huge rally. And that started this rally in this market. At that point, once we reclaimed the 50-day, right here, the purple line, we have not closed below it until yesterday. So the market has changed character, right? And that's what you have to look at. We talked about we had an ascending channel that usually breaks to the downside. In this case, it did, right? And the market here is going into a corrective phase. And the difference here and what's got people freaked out is this is typically supposed to be a very bullish time of the year. From November through the end of the year is supposed to be extremely bullish, actually mid-October, and it's not turning out that way at the moment, right? So the most important thing you need to do is recognize that the market has changed character and you need to adjust how you trade and your thinking and your investing. Now, I still have a lot of cash available. I did a little buying back here on this day, but overall, I have not been buying and I've been waiting. And, when you look at this right now, a couple things will stand out on this chart. One, you have a higher low, right? Higher, uh, a lower high. Sorry. Here's your high of all-time high. We pulled back. We had this big reversal candle. We came up. We stalled out. We talked about on that morning before we got the gap that they were possibly forming an H cell pattern, and boom, here it goes, and it's triggered. So down we've come, right? We've come down here. We just missed a 5% pullback. We talked about this candle being the important spot. This is the control candle. If you cannot hold this candle, right, that opens the door for a bigger correction at this point. So, you just realize that that opens the door for a move down lower. And, at that point, we'll have to see where they want to bring us. It doesn't have to be deep. It could be just down here to the 100-day. But if we lose this candle, here's your breakout level here at 646 area, an area to watch. Then your next one is down here at roughly 640. These would be levels to watch. We'll get our 10% correction on there tomorrow. What else has changed? Bounces are shallow. We came up, rejected at the 21-day, rejected at the 8 and 21-day, and here we are down and can't get a bounce today. We had a little bit of bounce, but we couldn't hold it. Couldn't quite get green, just missed it, and then we rolled back over and closed down. So, there's some things going on here that are saying that the market's not right. Now, sometimes you can point your finger at it. This time it's a little bit more nebulous. You can point at it, and we've talked about the Epstein files, which are probably not going to come out with based on everything going on. You could talk about the weakening consumer, which I've talked about with you guys a lot, and Home Depot came out and confirmed that today. So if you're not paying attention to Home Depot's earnings today, off a cliff here, almost to a 52-week low, another, report seeing big weakness into a very bullish time of year for them. We have Target tomorrow and Walmart on Thursday. Okay. We could talk about AI trade and what's going on. Microsoft and Nvidia putting in, I don't know, was it 10 billion, 100, but I don't remember how much money into Anthropic today. And, the value Anthropic is now after that is based at, they're not even public at $350 billion. This is a company with very little revenue and is just tremendous amounts of debt and tremendous amount of people in there that are owners and wondering how they're going to get their value out of this. Um, OpenAI is the same way, same thing with Perplexity. They're all looking at this, and that's part of what's going on here. This AI trade, people are looking at this and saying, how are we going to monetize this to the levels of investment that we're seeing going in? Meta's making nothing. At least Microsoft and Google and Amazon and Nvidia, right? They all have revenue coming in from this. Substantial. Speaking of which, we have NVIDIA tomorrow night. Okay. So NVIDIA tomorrow night, this has been the poster child for AI. When we look at this trade, this move, this is a 5-year chart, right? What happened? Here we go. Boom. This move up took off on that AI, pushed up again, pushed up, came down, pushed up. Are they going to beat? I have no doubt. Are they going to guide up? I have no doubt. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. Depends how much they guide up. It depends what they talk about with their margins. It depends what they talk about in their backlog and what they're seeing going on. Is there a weakening there? But this could have a big ramifications and big effects upon the market as we go into the following week and the next couple months. Do I think that this market and the AA is over? Do I think we hit the high and we're in for a long-term correction? My gut says no. My gut says we're in a correction in a market that has entered into bubble territory and that we're letting some of the air out, which is a wonderful thing. That said, as I talked about to you guys this morning and I talked with Scott Redler yesterday, back here in 2022, we had this very long phase, slow pullback for the whole year. This whole year was just a miserable year. Every little bounce was sold and it came back down. We're on a weekly chart, right? And this year was just, that year was just pretty wicked. Scott thinks the action is very similar to what we have up here. Scott's been around a long time. I do listen to Scott. So I will take that into account. Now he thinks it's a 25% chance that's where we're at. He also remains overall bullish on the markets. So what we need now is some leadership and some clarity. NVIDIA will give some. After NVIDIA tomorrow night and Thursday morning, we get our look at September job numbers. September job numbers are not October. We're already into November here, quickly going toward having a November report. We have a whole bunch of data coming at us. I think we're going to get PPI next week on Tuesday morning now, right as this data from the government shutdown starts coming in. We're going to start looking for clarity from the Fed as the Fed starts moving closer and closer to their final meeting of the year, and the uncertainty as whether they're cut or not, and the market wanting a rate cut, but the Fed doesn't seem to be very willing to give it. So, where do we go from here? The answer is it's murky. And I think that's what you guys need to realize that we have entered into a period of time here where things are not as clear. So what do I do when I go into that? I take scalp trades. You saw me today. I was very active on these. I had 5 little quick trades, made more than enough money for me today to make myself feel good. And I did not chase these little candles. I had a couple of times I tried to get in, I didn't fill, and that was okay. But overall, you have to sit here and say, where do I want? So I look for momentum. I look for something stronger. Netflix was the reason I traded today. It looked stronger. Chris jumped on calls. Netflix had a nice day, stood out today. If you're trading these little guys, a couple of you guys like ONDS. Now, ONDS is not any kind of indicator to me of what's going on in the market, but it had a nice day. And this is what you're looking for. You're looking for things that are trading against the markets. Lilly, new all-time highs. J&J, as we talked about, you have continued strength in pharma. Couple things come to mind. In a raging bull market like we've had here, the last people to jump into the market are always what? Who are the last people to usually jump in the market? They buy at the highs and they sell at the lows. Who are they? Retail, right? So retail investors are the ones sitting in here probably getting in a lot of pain who chased into this. The other big problem here is also biotech and pharma always seems to be one of the last rotations before a market rolls over. Again, not saying it is. So what do we need here? We need some type of leadership to come back to this market. We need a rally that takes back some levels. Some levels here would be to reclaim the 8 and the 21 day, get back into this channel, come down and have a solid bounce off of this 652.84 level that gives us belief that we can get some momentum back to the upside. The issue we're facing is after NVIDIA this week, while there's still earnings now for the next rest of the year, they're few and far between. They're not names that are going to really overall move the market. So we're going to really have to do this based on the strength of this past earnings season and just on the strength of seasonality. The market's been up all year. A 10% correction here would be the second one we've gotten this year. Remember, we had a 20% quick move down, or I forget how much it was back in April. So for me, the market has changed character, right? We had this big 20% correction here, and came out of it. The market's changed character, and the mantra is changed, right? Doesn't mean that the market has to continue to sell. We can go sideways for a bit. We can bounce right back up here. But right now, the market's changing. Funds are sellers. And you can always tell when funds are selling. You don't get these big dives in the market, right? These moves down have been very orderly, very controlled. You're not getting these plunges. There's no panic here. They're not trying to break the market. So what they do is they sell, 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 then they let people come in and funds and stuff and algos buy it back up, and they start selling into them. We had panic on this day. Remember this day back here? That was a panic that was not an orderly. This has been very orderly so far. So as I'm sitting here talking to you guys now for 10 plus minutes, I thought I'd let you guys start asking questions and opening things up and say, what do you want to look at, or what's on your guys' minds? Because, this is what this is about. It's trying to help you guys out. What's on your guys' minds here as we go into this? What do you want me to talk about? What do you want to go over? Some of you guys have been doing this for a long time or longer than me. Some of you guys are new. Again, if you need to talk, please reach out. I cannot reach out to you without knowing something's going on. So what are you guys thinking here? Anything you want me to talk about, go over, have a conversation with you guys about? Trying to put things in perspective. Market sentiment remains in the crapper, right? We've seen that what's going on here with the some of our indicators here today, even real time now we can look up and see that, the oscillators, you got a little bit of a bounce today, but not much, but a little bit of a bounce there. We'll see what things look like on the highs versus lows. Well, I mean, it's off. We are in a bubble, right? And a bubble does not mean it's a bad word. I mean, it eventually bubbles then burst and you get this big sell-off. But bubbles tend to go on for a while. They don't tend to be short-lived. So if we just entered into one the last couple of months, it usually doesn't mean we're anywhere near the end of it. Yeah. What would give me more concern is if I started hearing companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Google and Meta and all these names suddenly starting to really pull back on their spending in money into AI, into data centers, into energy, right? And energy is another big problem there. It remains a big problem that we do not have a quick fix for. While we're here, Warner Brothers wants Paramount to offer up to 30 to offer $30 a share when they're offering 23.50. So that they're not going to do that. Warner Brothers is really trying to rape everybody. What else? Good question. So did that answer it well for you? You know, go back and look. Go back and look at, 1997 through 2000, right? Look at, see if we, I don't know where this will bring us on the keys. Yeah, I'm just not getting, but you can see the volatility in here. We didn't just roll right over, right? This is a monthly chart. You can see it held in for a while before we went in and rolled over. Doesn't mean we're going to just roll over here and fall apart. What else, guys? It's night. We have a lot going on. I have a work call tonight at 6:30. We have 3 days left in this week. We have NVIDIA earnings tomorrow night, which I'll be staying late for with you guys. I think that's big. And there's also the aspect of the White House and Trump and how he affects the markets. And you saw today with the $1 trillion from Saudi Arabia, he wants to do stuff like that. Well, Raph, that's only a question you can answer. I mean, you just went to college. What are you going to do with it? I mean, I would think you'd be getting a job. Just my 2 cents. You graduated. Yep. One thing I do know is in a market like this, you want to stick with the stronger names, the more liquid names. They're going to give you better entrances when things go bad. You want to avoid the spec plays until the market turns. Well, the problem with that, John, is we're how many weeks away from the Fed meeting? A month? I think it's too far out to say, yeah, I think it's too far out for that, right? 3 weeks. I think it's too far out. Nvidia will could reverse the trend short term, and then it could change again based upon what the Fed does. I think you're going to have to take that into account as we move forward. Right. And I don't think there's enough here. Like, you know, it's off when you have something you can point your finger at and say this is what's bothering the market, you could look for that to be over, right? And say, okay, now I can buy. Like the tariffs back in April, right? That was clear. We could just go out there and point and just say, there, CEG gets a $1 billion loan to reopen 3 Mile Island. In this case, there's no specific thing you could point your finger at. It's a bunch of things, and that makes it more difficult. But remember, there's a lot of passive money that always comes into the markets. Funds got to make their numbers, right? So they're not looking to dump the market forever. I mean, if there's nothing going on, eventually they're going to look to start buying it. Might just be a little bit. And they're going to could turn around on a dime after tomorrow, after Nvidia. We'll have to see. What else? Hi, bud. Any other things you want me to go over? Anything else I can talk to you guys about, help you guys with here? Names you want me to look at that you have that you're concerned about? Things you're looking to buy, you want me to look at levels for you? One way or the other, I will get some charts out there this weekend, maybe even tomorrow night, maybe even tonight when I'm sitting here on a call for a while. All right. You guys sure? Nothing else? Bottom line is get control of your emotions here. Take it easy. Look for what you want to invest in as we come out of this, because there will be a time to come out of it. And, I'd be very careful with retail. And that's how we blow our accounts out. Thanks, John. I know you're kidding. Yeah, and that's the end of everybody in this trading group. You guys are welcome. Silver, you have a good night. Rajesh, a good night. John, let's off everybody. Um, I hope this helps.